Should the Minnesota Vikings make a massive trade and acquire Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants? It's a complicated answer, but the Vikings desperately need some help on the interior of that defensive line, and why not try to make a TJ Hawkinson-like trade to acquire Dexter Lawrence? In this video, we're going to break it all down because it's a very, very interesting idea. I'm Tyler Forness with A to Z Sports, and the Minnesota Vikings love to make trades. They love to acquire assets and try to improve their football team. They've done so multiple times over the past 3 years, with the biggest being TJ Hawkinson in 2022. At the trade deadline on Halloween, they traded a second and third round picks in consecutive drafts for Hawkinson and fourth round picks in those same respective drafts, essentially swapping a second and third round pick for 2 fourths to acquire Hawkinson. That move has made a massive impact on this football team. Hawkinson has been one of the best tight ends in the NFL and has really improved Kevin O'Connell's offense. He loves running wide choice to the tight end, and Hawkinson has been able to be not just a safety valve, but an elite weapon over the middle of the field. And that kind of trade may end up happening with Dexter Lawrence. Now, he was a first-round pick of the New York Giants back in the 2019 NFL Draft at 17th overall. Wasn't really praised as a great pick. He was kind of just Dave Gettleman getting laughed at again, especially after taking Daniel Jones 6th overall. Why? They had a lot of talent on the defensive front at that point. They had Dalvin Tomlinson, they had B.J. Hill, and they were about to trade for Leonard Williams. So you had just a great group up front. And it felt like a little bit of a redundancy to acquire Lawrence. Well, it ended up working out in a big way. Lawrence has become one of the best defensive linemen in the National Football League and is primed with 6 sacks as a one technique already. 6 sacks, playing nose tackle. Bonkers number to be a first team All-Pro this season because there is no Aaron Donald. That has really been given to Chris Jones and Aaron Donald. So why would the Vikings want to make this trade? Well, they have Harrison Phillips, who's a solid player, got signed to an extension this year, essentially is worth $7.5 million average annual value over the course of the next 2 seasons, with an out after 2025 where they don't have to take on much dead cap. So they could do that, but there isn't a ton of players in the free agent pool because a lot of those guys have gotten extended, including Green Bay Packers defensive lineman Kenny Clark. So acquiring a guy like Lawrence could make a lot of sense. He would not only be a short-term fixture, but a long-term answer, which is why the TJ Hawkinson trade eventually makes sense. Now, there are some complications. The salary cap is not one of them. He would be paid a prorated $6 million in cash on the salary cap by the Minnesota Vikings this year, with $15.5, $18.5, and $18 million salaries over the next 3, all of which the Vikings can handle with their current salary cap structure. But why would the Giants want to trade him? You have Joe Schoen, the general manager, and head coach Brian Daboll, who are basically fighting for their jobs. They need to win football games now. They're 2-3. They just beat the Seattle Seahawks, but it's hard to say no to a great offer. And if they get one, there is a realistic possibility that they could trade one. The Vikings also only have 3 tradable picks right now. They will have a 4th with that compensatory 3rd that they ended up getting. And we'll get from Kirk Cousins this upcoming February or March when those picks are awarded. But they have a 1st and 2 5ths to trade right now. Trading 2 firsts straight up for a guy like Lawrence may feel like fair compensation, but it's not something that the Vikings can do. And this is where some pick swaps might be able to come in. My projection is this: Dexter Lawrence and a 2025 second round pick to the Vikings for their 2025 first, 2026 first, and 2026 fourth. So you give a little bit more by getting that second round pick back, because I think 2 first round picks might be a little too high of market value for Dexter Lawrence, considering the highest defensive tackle compensation that I could find over the last 5 years was DeForest Buckner, who went for the 13th overall pick. And that's key because it was known as the 13th overall pick when they made the trade. That matters here. There is no variable. It was the 13th overall pick because that trade was made on the first day of free agency in March. So, how do you gauge that trade compensation? I kind of looked at Bradley Chubb's from a couple of years back, where Chubb went to the Miami Dolphins for a 1st, 4th, and Chase Edmonds. Well, you can kind of extrapolate that. Okay, well, Dexter Lawrence plays a less premium position than edge rusher, but he's also a better football player. So that's where you get the 2 firsts and a fourth for Lawrence and a second to come into play. Would that actually happen? Here's the thing with trades, nobody really knows until the trade happens. We think we can gauge market value, but market value is so cyclical because it takes multiple teams to be interested in a player in order for market value to truly be established. The Vikings should really consider making the move for Dexter Lawrence because it would revolutionize their defense and make things a hell of a lot easier when it comes to getting to the quarterback, playing the run. They don't have a great defensive lineman on this team. They could get one in the first round. But with them potentially picking 32, why not trade that pick and get a guy who can help you win now while also helping you in the future? Do the TJ Hawkinson trade again, Kwesi Mensa. I'm Tyler Forness with A to Z Sports. Skull Vikings.